Hello everyone, this is Lincoln Prime, and today we are taking a look at the Transformers Mission GTR Megatron. Now this thing I actually found at a collectible store, and I was like really surprised to see it, because I remember the first day that I actually discovered this thing existed, I was like, oh my god, they made Megatron into a Nissan Skyline GTR? What? And if you guys don't know, which I don't think I've ever said so, the GTR is one of my favorite vehicles ever. The order that it goes in: Camaros, GTRs, Impalas. I love, well, specifically like the old ones, not the new ones. I think those look terrible, but yeah, this is one of my favorite cars of all time. Now, I do also kind of prefer the older Nissan Skylines. I think the 90s ones look a lot cooler, but I do still really like this design of GTR. And when I saw that they did a Megatron of it, I was like, oh my god. And then I also discovered that they did other characters, like there was a Fortress Maximus and Optimus Prime and like 2 or 3 others that they did, and I was like, oh, these are awesome. And I found this one a few days ago and I was like, I have to get this. But here it is in hand, and it looks fantastic in this box. I think this is just a very cool looking box right here. Now, if you guys don't know, this is actually a reuse of an alternate mold of the GTR, which originally belonged to an Optimus Prime figure, but it wasn't like red and blue, it was also silver like this Megatron. But we have some very nice box art of Megatron right here on the front. This was 11 years ago now, during the Thrilling 30 era, except this was Takara's version of the 30th anniversary, because usually they have 2 separate, anniversary logos. You got this really cool kind of grid style art of Megatron right here. Transformers Mission GT. Transformers works with Super GT. I do not know exactly what this vehicle is in terms of like what it's referencing. I just kind of see that it's, the S-Road Reto Mola GTR, and yeah, I'm not much of a car nerd, so if you guys cringe at my lack of knowledge, I do apologize, but I don't know too much about the car that this is representing other than it is a sports vehicle. We have some promo images of Megatron in his robot mode and vehicle mode on the back, and then we also have this mini figure right here, which is fully articulated, which is awesome. This is, they call her the GT sister. Her name is Noah, which is an interesting name. But yeah, we'll get to her in a minute, but then we also have all these pictures right here of the GTR mode on the back and some of the stuff that he can do, and this is the car he's based off of. It is not fully accurate from what I'm seeing based on what is going on here, so yeah, but we have some more box art on the side, a little bit more stuff on the other side, not too much on the top, not too much on the bottom. Let us get this guy open and see what we got. Just taking a quick look at the clamshell on the inside, we do have the figures displayed, the gun, and then we also do have the instruction booklet. And here we have Megatron out of the box, and just going over this real quick, this is a little kind of instruction booklet that he comes with, and I really like this. I just think it's cool. Like, of course, we have the basic instructions right here on this side, right? And you also have like Megatron up there, which looks pretty cool. But I do really like this kind of like fold out sheet we have going on here. Like, it just kind of provides a little bit more information. I can't really read any of this because it's all in Japanese, but it is really cool. I do wish that this could have maybe come with like a poster or something to kind of, or even like a collector's card, just to give me an excuse to like sleeve it or something like that. We also have this, don't know what this is, and that's really about it for that. But anyways, moving on into the actual review itself, here we have Megatron and Noah, and yeah, this is a really cool looking, just as a display, this would be really cool. Now, it is a little awkward because the minifigure is larger than the actual vehicle, so this does not fit into scale in any way, but I am going to move these off to the side for now, just to focus on the vehicle mode itself. This thing is awesome. Again, I love the GTR design. It looks sick as always. It has all of the tampograph details going on, like all the stickers and all the sponsors going on the sides and on the top and on the other side. It looks really cool. But yeah, again, I don't know too much about this, so if you guys know anything and want to educate me in the comments, please feel free to do so. So I'm not really going to talk about anything relating to this, just so I don't embarrass myself, but it does look really cool. I love the overall kind of body design. I love the silver paint going on, some of the red paint going on here on the front and on the back looks really cool. And then we do have some gunmetal silver, looks really good. clear front lights right here, and there is some chrome detailing on the inside to kind of make that shine, which looks really cool. We also have some clear red for the taillights right here. And yeah, I mean, this thing looks really cool, and it does feel nice and hefty. It does have some die-cast metal right here on the bottom, so it does kind of help to, you know, add a little bit of heft to it. The tires are actually rubber. I love the way these tires look and feel. That's awesome. And it does actually have some functionality in vehicle mode as well. The doors can actually open like so. I do want to be careful with this as much as I can be. I did get this for a good deal, but still I don't want to break it. But the doors can open, and on the inside there are actually like seats molded in right here. So we have like two front seats. This is the passenger seat right here, and then this is the driver's seat. There is the steering wheel on the inside. There's also the little, you know, gear shift parts going on right there, which is awesome. The insides of the doors are nicely molded. And then in the back, which also surprised me even more, just like an actual coupe, you can fold the front seat down, and then that way you can get in the back, and there are seats molded in the back, and they're not tabbed in properly. I'm trying to get that. Yep, that's not going to go, but yeah, there's actual seats molded in the back. That's really cool. I love that. Now, I'm pretty sure you could probably fit like, you know, Masterpiece minifigures on inside. This is like MP, like this is like a weird like in between Masterpiece scale and deluxe class, or like old deluxe class scale. So you can fit like minifigures on the inside. So that's a neat touch. And then of course we also have the hood. This is the only way you could like get it to like open, is this little kind of nub right here. I'm just going to use this and see if that works better. And yeah, there we go. So that opens up just like so, and there isn't really anything inside the hood to talk about. This is probably like my only gripe, because like you have this hyper realistic interior, but then the inside of the hood is just nothing. So yeah, that is a little bit of a disappointment, but hey, it's not that big of a deal. And you can of course display it with the hood up and the doors open, so that is pretty cool. The trunk cannot open, so that's not a huge deal to me. But yeah, that's really about it when it comes to vehicle mode. Now, one thing that is a bit of a disappointment to me is that he does include his blaster, which I guess this could also constitute as, you know, his fusion cannon, but it is tiny. And it looks like it would be a car part, and it looks like it would go somewhere. It doesn't go anywhere. There's just not enough room on the bottom of the vehicle for this to store. Nowhere on the sides, nowhere on the top. There's just nowhere to put it. So the only thing he can do is hold it. So that's that. But it looks pretty cool. There is some, you know, tampograph warning details right here. It is nicely painted in silver, black, and red, but that's really about it for that. Now, moving on to Noah. I do have her on this stand right here because it's a little hard to stand her up. This is just a NECA base, if you guys are wondering, so you can, I don't know if you can still get these. You probably still could, but I'm trying to take, drop, there we go. It is clear plastic, so I'm not trying to break it, but here's Noah. And one thing that's interesting is that this is the only minifigure, or like GT sister, that does not have matching colors with the vehicle. All four, like the other four GT sisters, actually match color schemes with the other characters, except for this one. And that's when I realized that her color scheme is actually based on the IDW B2 bomber Megatron. If that, at least that's what I think that they were going for. I mean, it's pretty obvious you have the black and purple going on, and there's no black and purple on this. So that's just my guess, but I think it looks really cool. Now, proportionately though, there's one little thing, and I think you can notice it. Her neck is 2/3 the size of her torso. I understand they had to fit the ball joint on the inside, but it did really leave just for like this awkward look to it, and yeah. But it does what it needs to. Like the eyes are tampographed onto the face. I think the tongue is painted, so there is that. The hair is pretty nicely sculpted. She has like a beret on top, which is pretty cool. And then the kind of like metallic black and, you know, metallic, I guess maroon, looks really cool. And there is like a, you know, Tamper, I can barely read that. That's so tiny. And then, of course, you know, skirt looks pretty cool. The thigh highs look pretty cool. That's really all I can say about this. She is articulated. In fact, for a figure of this size, she actually has like slightly more articulation than a Marvel Legends, which is insane. But ball joint at the head can look up that far and down that far. You can turn the head all the way around, but you have to accommodate for how the hair moves, so just take my word on that. Arm is a bit loose here and it does pop off easily, but it can move up all the way like so and down all the way like so, as well as all the way around. Again, trust me on that one. The bicep can swivel. Again, this is tiny, so I'm trying to be careful. She does have a double jointed bend at the elbow, so that is pretty cool. And then her wrists can, I'm just going to take the whole arm off. And then she does have wrist swivel, which, you know, the hands do pop off. I will get into that in a second. Yeah, so there's that. And then she also has a kind of double jointed like abdomen section, and that popped off. Yeah, that's one thing that's annoying. The whole thing can just separate, but yeah, so backward crunch, forward crunch, there's that. And then the legs, there's not much range here, and that's just because of the skirt, so that you can't really do too much on that. There would be more range if you were to just remove this section entirely, but no. That's really all you're going to get in terms of forward and back and like splits. So, you know, that's really about it. You do have, you know, a knee swivel, but it is a little hard to get, you know, to work. Double jointed knees. One thing I think is really cool, these pins are actually painted, like the placement of these pins, that's actually based on the actual design of this. So they did actually incorporate the purple buttons going on here on the sides as part of the design. So that's kind of neat. Yeah, so double jointed knee bend, a swivel at the ankle, up and down at the ankle, and an ankle pivot. But yeah, that's really about it when it comes to the articulation. Again, I'm just going to keep her on this base just so she doesn't topple over. Yeah, so there's that. And then she actually does include extra hands. So just taking a look at these real quick, you have quite a few options going on here. We have two-fisted hands, so you can replace those. Of course, the widespread open hands. And then the rest of these are actually articulated. So she has two kind of grabby hands, like so. And they are attached via a pin, so they do rotate in and out. And then two kind of open, relaxed hands, like so. So that's pretty cool. And they're pretty easy to swap out. They're not, it doesn't feel like they're going to break or anything like that if you do. So, you know, so you have options with that, but that's really all I can say for Noah. Overall, I feel like I've talked about Megatron as much as I wanted to in his vehicle mode, so let us get down to the transformation. Just a little PSA. When tabbing this in, you actually have to force and like squeeze all of this together. And it really sucks because some of this is clear plastic. And why they made this part clear plastic beats me, but you have to squeeze it together so you can align the foot with this peg right here. And when I was pushing it in, I was being as gentle as I possibly could. It cracked. So you can actually see like the glue there. So yeah, I had to glue that together, hoping to God that doesn't actually like break off again in the future. But yeah, so there's that. And here we have GTR Megatron in his robot mode, and he looks fantastic. Now, I've always enjoyed the, alternators slash alternity slash Binal Tech looks for figures. Like, I love the ultra realistic vehicle modes that they just happen to give to actual transforming figures. Like, you'd have interiors that are realistic, you'd have exteriors that are realistic, you'd have like realistic stuff that functions, the way an actual vehicle would. And I love these. Now, this is a little smaller than most of the Binal Tech slash alternators figures. I'm not sure why that is, but hey, it's not a huge deal. I think he looks fantastic in this mode. It's hard to tell that it's Megatron. I mean, I feel like the head at least kind of looks a little Megatron-y, but it's not the easiest to tell that this is Megatron. The only thing giving it away is the color scheme, and that's really about it. But overall, I mean, this thing looks fantastic. I love the way the chest kind of comes together. Like, it still kind of gives, the vehicle mode away, but it condenses it in such a cool way. I mean, the legs are pretty bulky. I love the door wings. I always love door wings when it comes to like car bots, so that's awesome. The arms look pretty cool. I mean, like, it's got a good build to it. It does have a little bit of a backpack. That's not a huge deal to me. That's just something that's kind of, basic when it comes to these kinds of figures, so I don't really care too much. Of course, the steering wheel is still visible in his alt mode, so there's nothing you can really do about that. Maybe there actually is. No, it looked like there was a hinge there, but that's really about it. I think it looks really good. Now, when it comes down to paint, looking at the face, the eyes are painted red, the face is painted white, and the rest is painted silver. He does have this clear crown piece right here on his forehead. There is, of course, the rest of the silver paint and, dark gunmetal gray that, resides around the figure based on what was seen in vehicle mode. But in terms of the robot mode details, I mean, we have some red here for the sides of the abs and silver for the abdomen, black and red for the crotch. There is an Autobot logo right here, kind of like on this belt area. Silver for the thighs, got some more red paint here on the knees as well as the sides of the legs, which looks really cool. And the rest is pretty much like, you just have gray feet, and they are molded in like metallic gray, so that is pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, we also have of course, the tampograph detail that just kind of shows up in certain areas. I think it just cleans up really well. Again, my major gripe with this is just the transformation aspect, trying to force those parts together. That is such a tedious aspect about this, and I do not like that one bit. But when he comes together very, very nice, and I love the way he looks. Now, bringing in the weapon, he does have his little gun right here, which I guess you could probably pass off for as like a miniature fusion cannon, but his hands they are big enough to accommodate for the handle right here, and then also there's this big slot right here, and then this section right here. So you just align all of that together and push that in like so, and there you go. And he holds his gun pretty solidly. It is a little goofy. His arms can barely, like the elbows can barely reach 90 degrees just because of how this is built. So yeah, it does look a little silly when trying to pose him, but when you just have his arms, I guess, like put down to the side, like that. I'm trying to get this to cooperate. There we go. But yeah, so when they're put down like that, it does look pretty natural. So there is that. But yeah, overall, he looks really cool. Now, in terms of articulation, we do have a ball joint at the head, which allows him to look up that far and down that far, as well as all the way around like so, and a little bit of side to side. The arms can rotate all the way around like such. The shoulders can move outward and inward. It is a little awkward the way it works, but you can get it to work to the best of your ability. We do have a swivel at the bicep, a bend at the elbow, and a ball joint at the wrist, so it can turn all the way around like so. There's nothing at the waist, so you can't turn it or anything like that, but the legs can kick forward. They are on these pretty nice ratchet joints, and kick back like so. They also can kick out to the side pretty much like that, swivel at the knee, a bend at the knee, also again ratcheted, which is pretty nice. And then we do have a ball joint at the foot, so you can get some up and down movement, a little bit of pivot, and some side to side. So that is about it when it comes to articulation. And one last feature that I think is pretty cool is you do have these little side guns that you can just kind of fold out like so and like so, and that adds for a little bit of more, I guess, detailing, and I think that looks really cool. And for my final comments on this figure, it has issues for sure. I'm not a fan of some of the, I guess, mold defects that this has, especially with the legs. It is, you know, a bit tedious feeling, but, you know, when you get past a lot of that stuff, I mean, it is an expensive figure. You are going to want to be careful with it. So, you know, it's like, it's not just your average everyday toy. It is more of a collector's item, and you know, because of that, you do have to understand that you're holding a, you know, more high-end collectible item. So, you know, I understand that breakage issue is a little bit of a problem for me that I just experienced. It is just a crack. It's not a huge deal, but at the end of the day, it's just like, it does suck a little bit. I do wish that there's other things that they could have done instead of just like using clear plastic for some parts, but hey, what can you do? But the overall figure itself is awesome. I love the inclusion of the minifigure. I love, you know, just a lot of the stuff that this is able to do. The, I guess, automorph sections when it comes to transformation is really cool. Doesn't work the way I feel like it was intended to work, but it is a nice inclusion, especially considering that the alternator / alternity / spinal tech figures usually encompass that detailing when it comes to the transformation. So I do really like the gimmick features on this. It feels pretty good in hand, both in vehicle mode and pretty decently in robot mode. And I'd say this would be a good addition to your Transformers collection, or hell, even a toy car collection. I do kind of wish I could have probably bought 2 of these if I was able to, just to have one in vehicle mode and one in robot mode, because both modes look so good. But unfortunately, I am going to have to choose between the 2. I am probably going to display it like this. I think this is a good way to display. But anyways, guys, that's really about it for this video. Thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.